Let's talk about Rick Perry. Rick Perry was governor of Texas. He's a Republican. He's Donald Trump's Secretary of Energy, and he is an evangelical Christian through and through. And if you had any doubt about that, he believes, and he told Fox News, that Donald Trump was chosen or ordained by God to become president and to do great things. Now, if God chose Donald Trump, God either has a very unusual sense of humor or is actually an extraordinarily malicious actor. Let's take a look at the video of Rick Perry saying it in his own words.
God's used imperfect people all through history. King David wasn't perfect. Saul wasn't perfect. Solomon wasn't perfect. And I actually gave the president a little one-pager on those Old Testament kings about a month ago. And I shared it with him. I said, Mr. President, I know there are people that say, you said you were the chosen one. And I said, you were. I said, if you're a believing Christian, you understand God's plan for the people who rule and judge over us on this planet in our government.
And less people on the left attack Rick Perry. He pointed out to me, he believes Barack Obama was sent by God as well. He said for that moment and that time. He said he thinks for this moment and this time, Donald Trump was sent by God to do great things. So we're going to play the whole clip later, but I think it's interesting.
Now, it's interesting how Ed Henry slips in that Perry also believes Obama was selected by God. But it's important because they're trying to pretend to be fair and balanced here. Trump was chosen by God to do great things, says Rick Perry, which is very different than why God would presumably choose Barack Obama, according to Rick Perry's evangelical right-wing point of view. Now, this the analysis is this is, of course, completely bonkers, but it is not that rare among many of the people that are around Donald Trump or supporting Donald Trump. Trump is, of course, not at all religious. He started pretending to be religious when he ran for president, his infamous 2 Corinthians quote, claiming that the Bible is his favorite book other than his own book, Art of the Deal. But as we know, we have seen this exact idea that Trump is not only religious, but was chosen by God, floated by a lot of the people around Donald Trump. One example is someone we already talked about earlier on today's program, Trump's second former press secretary, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, who said that God, quote, wanted Donald Trump to become president, and that's why he's there. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said that it's possible God raised Donald Trump from the beginning to be president in order to protect Israel from Iran. White evangelicals in general agree with this idea. In 2017, there was a survey done by the Public Religion Research Institute, and more than half of white evangelicals, 57%, said that God played a, quote, major role in Trump being elected president in 2016. So there's actually a lot of stuff to disaggregate here. Number one, we know that 62% of Trumpists will never turn on Trump no matter what he does. That's from a poll about 3 weeks ago. Even hypothetically, there is nothing that Donald Trump could do that would get them to reconsider their support for Donald Trump. I would guess that there's an overlap, if you imagine a Venn diagram, of the people who think Trump was chosen by God and the people who would never reconsider supporting Donald Trump. That's 62% of his supporters. If you believe Donald Trump was chosen by God, of course you wouldn't turn on him no matter what he does, because whatever crazy thing Trump does must be part of God's plan. Again, it's obviously a closed, logical loop that is indefeasible. There's no way to disprove it. But if that is what you believe, that is logical reasoning based on the completely bogus premises that are required in order to get to that point. That's number one. Number two, as far as Trump goes in terms of his relationship to Christianity, Trump, aside from it being an obvious lie that he's a religious person, Trump goes against essentially every stated Christian belief. Now, stated is an important word, which I'll come back to momentarily. Trump is an adulterer. He has been pro-choice his entire life. He's a liar. He's a cheat. He's been found legally liable for defrauding both students and veterans, on and on and on. But what matters isn't whether you've actually lived a life that adheres to the stated evangelical Christian values or not. What matters is, are you saying the right stuff today? And do you claim to be against abortion today? And Donald Trump is the proof of this. that above all proof confirms this is the reality for so many, particularly white evangelicals in the United States. Donald Trump embodies the opposite of what evangelicals claim to value, but he does say he's against abortion. Hillary Clinton was pro-choice. And this is basically all you need to know in a great sense. There's something insidious happening on the American right, which we haven't talked about much. The American right is generally considered to fetishize the Constitution almost as if it were a sacred text. But there's an extremist evangelical Christian contingent, I guess we would call it, where, sure, the Constitution's fine, but in reality, they would prefer to do away with separation of church and state and to make the United States functionally a Christian theocracy. They don't deify the Constitution. They would rather it be replaced with Christian theology, a sort of Christian version of Sharia law. And that is a very, very scary thing. And there's actually been, there's a few interesting documentaries recently, some fictionalized and some TV series or films, I would say, some fictionalized and some not, that point this out. And it is really, really scary stuff. And Rick Perry's comment is just the tip of the iceberg, so to speak.